you for attending today's TriStar webcast regarding a Windchill update by Chris Bergquist, who is the Director of PTC's PLM segment. This is the second webcast TriStar has had this quarter. Last quarter we had a TriStar webcast associated to the PTC Creo 2.0 and a sneak peek kind of what's coming in 3.0 by Paul Sagar, who's the Director of PTC Creo Product Management. And next month we'll have a webinar specifically around aligning business requirements with technology for improving product development. So more of a higher level business discussion on that topic, and more information will be forwarded to you associated to that. So in today's webcast, the agenda will be Chris will spend the next 40 to 45 minutes talking about the update to Windchill, and then we'll have a Q&A session with Chris and another gentleman, Tom Knight, who's supporting Chris on this webcast. In order to submit questions for this on your GoToMeeting panel, you'll see questions, basically something called questions on the drop-down panel that you have on the right-hand side. And you can submit your question there, and then at the end we'll go through a variety of different questions that are submitted for Chris to answer or Tom to answer. And those questions that we don't get answered on this webcast, we'll submit those to Chris and Tom. They can then respond, and then we'll forward out to everyone who actually attended this webcast. So with that, I'll turn that over to Chris Bergquist, and we'll go from there. Chris?
Thank you, Dwight, and good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here and to have a chance to share with you some of the new improvements in Windchill 10.2, and I'll talk a little bit about not only what's in 10.2, but what's coming in some future releases. So I'll talk about some of the plans in our 10.2 M20 release, our M30 release, and then what's yet unnamed, but I'll refer to it as a Windchill 11 at a very high level. And finally, we'll follow up with some questions. So I wanted to just start by articulating the strategy that PTC has embarked on in really supporting an end-to-end vision to help you as manufacturers. So we began with supporting digital product models in managing those digital models in the first web-based PLM solution, Windchill. And then, you know, more and more of you faced global development, forces of globalization, not only in selling to different countries, but actually doing your manufacturing there at different sites as well. And associated with that is increasing regulation. So when the regulation is complicated by specific rules in specific countries that you do business in, and then, you know, more and more products today that used to be primarily, let's say, mechanically intensive are more and more electronic and software intensive. So that the customization, the ability to tailor them is driven through software. And coupled with that is an increasing interest in customers in personalizing the products. And it's personalization that's not only for a particular type of customer, but a particular market as well. And so we also have recently embarked on supporting the service of these products as they get into the field. And with our most recent strategy, you know, connecting those products so that we can actually manage those while they're in service. And, you know, and finally, coupled with this is this servitization, what we call servitization, where increasingly customers don't want to buy products anymore. They want to buy a service. So for instance, we have customers like Carrier who sells heating, ventilating, and air conditioning equipment. And they increasingly sell, you know, climate control services. So they have customers who buy a service to keep their building, at a constant temperature throughout the year. And they are responsible for delivering that service, in an uninterrupted fashion. And so it's critical that those products are connected in a smart way, that they can anticipate when they need service, so that they can deliver that service in a way that addresses the climate needs. So I think these, I realize that not all of you are facing all of these forces, but it's a key part of what we're trying to address in your businesses. Okay, so let's talk about what we're making available in Windchill 10.2. This is what's currently available. And first of all, I want to emphasize that, customers are really rapidly moving to Windchill 10. It's a really significant change in our product line, and I expect that many of you are already there. And what we've seen is that based on our support activity, 75% of our customers are now at Windchill 10. And that's great, because not only does this provide, these releases provide more value to you, but when you can keep up, you can take advantage of what we deliver in the latest versions. And we're trying to make that, make it possible for you to get there much more quickly at lower cost, so that you can realize that value in a seamless way. In terms of some of the key improvements in 10.2, workspace, there was a number of workspace enhancements. And now it's possible to upload the content in your server workspace in any state. So even if you've locally modified it, or you have items that aren't checked out, or you have issues with conflicts, you can still upload those changes from your client-side workspace to the server workspace. And this is one of the top challenges that we've seen in the PTC community. And so we want to know that we're listening and responding to those challenges. Another related capability is that you can now perform a save as from your local workspace, even if you've made local modifications. So if you have some assembly, for example, that you've locally modified, and you want to save it as a new structure, you can do that without being encumbered with the fact that you made those local modifications. And similarly, you don't have to address the conflicts that might occur with naming at the time that the data is uploaded from your local workspace. You can address those as you need to at the time that you're actually ready to formally commit the changes and check them in. And finally, you can essentially ensure that your local workspace is always backed up. So what's on the server is equal to what's on in your client workspace. For those of you that are working with third-party, non-PTC MCAD tools like SolidWorks, we've made a number of improvements to make that experience much more natural. We provided the ability to prevent inadvertent changes to items in your workspace, so that you can ensure that items that you don't have explicitly checked out are not inadvertently modified. There's a new ribbon that we've created which collects all of the commands associated with Windchill in one place. And then finally, with SolidWorks in particular, we allow you to interact with Windchill as if it was a file system. And this is much more aligned with the typical SolidWorks user experience. So it's much easier for those users that you have that are using the third-party applications like SolidWorks to adopt Windchill. Change templates is a huge improvement that we introduced in 10.2. So for those of you who are using Windchill to manage engineering change, you can now create templates for typical types of changes. And then you can include in those templates predefined activities. Let's suppose, for example, that you've got some regular design tasks, some some manufacturing tasks like checking changes for manufacturability, and then finally that you need to ensure that the quality checks can be properly updated associated with that change. This will allow you not only to be much more efficient with changes, but to increase the quality of changes, to ensure that things are not missed. You can include boilerplate information that you can tweak. And in many cases, what customers find is this kind of thing, having these templates, it ensures that they don't forget about things, and that the information is presented in a uniform way based on some of that boilerplate and task content. Another big change with Windchill 10.2 is that our parts classification capability. Now, this is a separate solution that you can buy, but it used to be delivered on a separate architecture with a separate server that you would have to install and configure and manage and upgrade. It had a disjoint experience in terms of searching for parts and in classifying new parts. And now, with 10.2, this capability is integrated on the Windchill architecture. It's part of the Windchill server. When you do it, when you have installed this option, your searches include the classification attributes. When you create classifications, they're created in a way that's familiar to you, very similar to the Windchill Type Manager kind of interface. And I think those who are familiar with managing, maximizing part reuse and minimizing the creation of new parts, the ROI on this type of capability can be extremely high, particularly for those customers who have a large new part throughput. It's something where you can really realize a lot of value. We support a new supersede capability. So let's suppose, for example, that you've got a part that you want to replace with a lower cost part, or you have an unsafe part that you need to replace with a safe part, and you want to make sure that all of those uses are superseded and that that unsafe part is made obsolete. So the support for superseded part is built into the change, so you can specify both whether you are superseding with an existing part that you already have, that's already released, or to supersede with a new part. And in the case of a new part, you can supersede not only the part itself, but the CAD documents, the CAD models, and the drawings associated with that. So you get a complete supersede. You don't have to separately deal with the data that's related to that part that's critical for manufacturing and purchasing. There have been some enhancements to importing and exporting BOMs so that you can perform what-if kinds of changes, or even edit the BOM in terms of modifying the attributes. So there's the capability now where you can export what we call an importable spreadsheet, with the idea that if you use this exported spreadsheet, that's formatted in a way that Windchill can import changes that you've made, such as to attributes that you might have made, or replacements with alternates or substitutes. For those who have optional products or have different variations of products, we have a new module that's available as an add-on to PDM Link, where you can now support conditional rules. So if you have an assembly that has, let's say, optional accessories, and you want to carefully control that if one particular accessory is used, what other accessories or what other add-ons can be included once you've made that first choice. So there's a lot of power here for supporting, again, optional behaviors such as might be associated with different accessories. We've improved the package exchange. So for those of you who either work with the government and have to submit CEDRL and ESTRL deliverables, we've made it possible to exchange these packages in a much more repeatable way, and not only to deliver an initial exchange, which might be a very large package, but provide subsequent updates of just incremental changes. And there's some more improvements coming that I'll talk about in some of the future releases around this as well. Now, what we would recommend in general is when you can to invite your partners and your key manufacturing or design partners, invite them into your PDM Link or Project Link system so that they have direct access. That's the best way in general for those customers and partners that you work very closely with. But that's not always possible, and so we have this external collaboration package exchange capability to address those other cases. The Windchill cost now supports the ability to associate costs for different manufacturing sites. And what's really important about this kind of thing is that it provides designers who know where a particular product is going to be built, which manufacturing site, to choose the particular parts with the lowest cost for that manufacturing site. So again, this is why with a Windchill cost type of approach as opposed to a traditional ERP approach, having that early visibility to cost information that can influence design decisions is a real advantage. There have been a number of enhancements to the project planning in Project Link and also now available in PDM Link. So we now support in the enterprise project planning and the auto execution mode so that you can create a project with a predefined plan, let's say based on a template, and then execute that automatically so that as particular activities are ready to start, notifications go out to the assignees, to the resources, automatically via email, for example. And this is a way that you can really, for those of you that have a high throughput of maybe custom engineered products, you can ensure that those activities are delivered to the particular individuals who need to do the work as soon as it's ready to start. It really eliminates the need for a project manager to be involved in the minutia of telling somebody, okay, now you can start on the activity that you're responsible for. And in resource management, you can reassign a particular resource across the different activities in which that resource is used, within or across. We made a number of improvements in the Relationship Explorer. So this is a visual way that you can navigate all of the relationships for a structure, for an item and its associated relationships. So for example now, if there's a promotion request in which some object is involved, you can see that relationship and you can navigate from that object to the promotion request or from the promotion request to the objects that are being promoted. There's support for PTC's integrity solution. So for those of you who might be using or needing to manage requirements that are associated with product items, you can navigate those relationships through this interface. This is pretty slick capability for those that have more complex relationships. It's just a quick way of visually navigating those relationships in a very friendly kind of environment. We made a number of improvements with document management with the Microsoft Office integration, and there's kind of two aspects to this. One key thing that we added is that we know that there's a lot of customers that they might have individuals who own a particular document. Let's say it's a spec that they're responsible for that might be on their desktop, and they're used to, and it's just much more convenient for them to manage updates to that document that's on their desktop. And then when they make changes, all they want to do is publish it. They're the only ones making changes. They're using Windchill really just to provide visibility to the changes. So what you can do is, instead of having to check that out and check it back in, you can just make the changes to the document on your desktop and drag and drop and replace it with the latest content on the server. So those are some of the things just to facilitate the common ways that people want to work with documents in an efficient and friendly way. So there's support also for those of you who are on Office 2013 or perhaps Windows 8. Those are both supported now. And for those interested in managing their manufacturing process plans, our MPM link solution allows you now to take resources and product structure items and to visually drag and drop them into a process plan definition. So this is a much more simplified, visually driven approach than was possible in the past. And it's something, I think, where we add much more compelling value now over previous manual approaches that might be based on spreadsheets, and that's part number oriented. Okay, so that was Windchill 10, and there's been some recent additions in 10.2 that I'll cover. So 10.2 is out. That was released at the end of last year. And one thing I want to note is that we know it's never fast enough, but the good news is the combination of Windchill 10.2 M10 and Creo 2 M80 is significantly better than any other release that we've had. So that's good news. And I want to say that this is a constant effort for us to improve the performance of the integration, because we know, especially for those of you who work with very large assemblies, have large workspaces, it's a constant challenge. And we know that this directly translates into productivity improvements for you. So there's good news there. So I talked earlier about the improvements to our desktop integration. For those of you who are familiar with our ability within Windows Explorer to drag and drop and perform operations in Windows Explorer to the Windchill content, there's a lot of really nice improvements. So things like using the cut, copy, and paste move operations right in Windows Explorer. You can do that now for the data that's in the Windchill folders. You can create new folders right from within Explorer. So this once again is really going to help for those roles who might have more occasional use and more document-centric use of Windchill. It's going to allow them to get the value out of Windchill, and most importantly, to ensure that those documents that they're working on are associated with the product items, the parts and assemblies that they're that they should be properly linked with. And then it's a common thing that we've heard from you about the need to manage this information that often occurs in a more ad hoc fashion through Outlook or email, to be able to capture that in Windchill and again associate it with the key parts documents that those conversations need to be supported with. So now you can drag and drop directly from Outlook into the Windchill folders through the Windows Explorer interface. Lots of improvements in search to make it more usable and more friendly to a wider audience. So first of all, the criteria areas have been well separated so that you can distinguish between criteria in type and in context. So context like products or libraries or projects, and then where you can define more specific criteria for the particular items as well. Users can define their own favorites. So if you're primarily working with documents and you don't want to see change requests and whatever else it is that you might not be working with. If you're not working with CAD documents, for example, you can exclude those. So this again is it's something that an end user can configure based on their use of the system and have a much more focused experience and do it in a very easy way. And similarly, when you want to specify what context options that you have, it's a little easier to do that, and it's a little more obvious with this interface. Find numbers. So for those of you that define find numbers in your CAD drawings, you can map those now to Windchill line numbers, and this is something where so it shows up in Windchill. It's something that those who are working in manufacturing can have visibility through Windchill, and and you're able to exchange that line number information with ERP. And this is we know critically important for those of you that really count on those find numbers to really drive a lot of your business and some of the manufacturing. Okay, let's move on to M20. So M20 is going to be coming out in June, early June we expect. And first of all, it will support on the client side Windows 8.1, Internet Explorer, and the Mac OS. Now that's just for client. Document management, for those who recall the applet, where you could drag and drop from your file system into the document create applet. That was something that was a performance bottleneck. It's exacerbated with some of the security challenges with Java. So that will be replaced with an HTML5 based approach, and it's really slick. And I think this is something, again, where we're making it possible for a broader set of roles to really get value out of the system and to make those relationships with the part and CAD information through the documents. And in terms of collaboration, I talked earlier about this package exchange capability that we introduced this some time ago, but one of the key improvements that that we're making in this M20 release is that you can create a package and you can change ownership so that you can have a design partner modify that package, maybe, and even add things to it. So you could create a skeleton design, hand it off to your design partner, give them ownership for all or some subset of it, and they might develop, design, if you will, a subassembly, which then they return to you. You take ownership back and import it into Windchill and selectively identify the changes that you want to accept, if not everything. So this facilitates interactions with design partners where you're not able to invite them directly to participate in Windchill. Project collaboration. So there's a couple new things for those who are using Project Link or interested in project collaboration. You can now take a CAD structure that's in a project and you can save it as a new structure. So if you do configure to order or engineer to order kind of work where you're managing that in a project, you can do a save as to a new project of something that's similar. And it stays in the context of that project until you're ready to check it in to PDM. We also support now back scheduling. Once again, this is critically important for a lot of engineer to order or assemble to order types of scenarios where you've got a contractual finish date and you really need to be sure that you meet that. If you are a company that has a high throughput of projects and you want to make sure that these projects are, orchestrated, the combination of back scheduling and automated execution is a great way for you to really have a well-oiled process to ensure that you get those engineered to order deliveries out on time. Okay, now moving on to Windchill 10.2 M30. So this is planned for the end of this calendar year, and there's some key improvements around platform structure management, some improvements in the workspace performance, in particular around status. Project collaboration, we will introduce a capability to support baseline, so you can create a baseline at any time of a project plan and you can compare it. There's what we call pool and shared assignments. So if you have something, a particular assignment that any member of a particular role or group can do, you can offer it just like you can in Windchill Workflow. And as well as you can have shared assignments where you've got multiple resources that are contributing to completing an activity. And we are working on a capability to make it much easier to configure workflow task page layouts. And what I'd like to do is, Tom, are you on?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yes, I'd like to introduce Tom Knight. So Tom Knight is a product manager that works on the Windchill team. He's got long experience in PLM and workflow and change management. And Tom's going to take us through this workflow task page configuration enhancement that he's working on right now. And we'd love to, get engaged with those of you who are really interested in this. Maybe you're using change management, but finding it difficult for some of your users to understand what to do, and perhaps you're concerned about making it available to a broader audience. So Tom, why don't you take us through some of the changes that that you're working on, and then again, we're very interested in your feedback in this area.
Right, okay. Yeah, so I don't know how many people on the call are involved in what we call the technical committees, but we've got a group of customers that come together a couple times a year to talk about a variety of topics, and this particular one was just looking at basically it's the delivery of work assignments. And what we're trying to understand is what are the kind of flavors of problems that users face when they get these assignments. And what seemed to boil up fairly high on the list was kind of the idea of these generic pages that get delivered that don't really have a lot of details and don't really have a lot of context to them. And so a user who's not necessarily familiar with our software kind of looks at these task assignments and they say, well, now what am I supposed to do? And so they really have trouble understanding what the assignment is all about and what are the things that they need to do to get the assignment done. So that seemed to be fairly high on the list of trying to make it clear what the assignment, what's the context of the work. The second part of it is really kind of the mechanics. Is how do you actually use the assignment and actually get the work that's required completed. So an example that we used is if I've got a change task that has several assemblies on it, and I need to make all the bill of material updates. Well, what are the steps that I have to go through to very quickly make those updates? So we do have some mass change capability, but maybe I need to go through each of these assemblies kind of one at a time and make some some updates to them. So can I make it very efficient to kind of use my work assignment kind of as, it's almost like a little mini workspace, you might say. It's an environment that is delivered to me to execute the work that I have to do to get that assignment done. So can I try to stay in that same context and complete the assignment? Next one's kind of the efficiency of navigation, and this is again if you look at what we have today, we kind of force the user to have to hunt around the system to kind of find all the pieces that may be involved in the work. And so again, can we try to deliver to the user what's needed for the assignment, and can we try to make it efficient to not have to lose the context for for where you're working. So kind of going between the assignments, the subject of the assignment, and possibly objects that are related to the assignment, and then as well as the idea of what we say free navigation, to be able to use the system to navigate what you need to, but also remain in the context of your assignment, so you don't you're not losing what you're attempting to do. Let's see, improve the quality of the deliverables. So again, the user's being assigned to do a set of work. Is there issues with the quality of the work that's being produced, and are there ways to make that better? And then the last point was really just kind of the overall backlog of your work list. So any given user may have 50, 100. I mean, they could have potentially many different types of assignments, and how you manage kind of your backlog of work is another topic that kind of came up. So as we did some initial polling, it really was the first two bullets that seemed to get probably over 50% of 50%. I always ask the question: if you could spend $100, how would you spend it on these? And it seems like $50 kind of got allocated to the first couple points. And so, how do we make it clear what your assignment is, and how do we make it easy to, complete your work? And so that's part of what we're trying to, kind of think about as we're beginning to move into the M30 release. Do you want to have any thoughts or questions or comments on that, or do we want to keep moving through this, Chris?
We'll save those till the end, Tom.
Okay.
We'll get some questions through the GoToMeeting, and then we'll answer those accordingly.
Okay. So here's again, this is a work in process, but this is the latest of our mock-ups. If you're familiar with the workflow task template UI, you can define these different flavors of UIs that you want to deliver to the user, but these are often custom, JSPs that you might have to put together in order to do that, and that's actually fairly expensive to be able to do that. And so the idea is that we obviously have to continue to support that, but we want to also make it possible that you can actually pull some components together in the layout that you want to put together for this particular assignment. So you could actually have one or more tabs. And what we've heard from a number of customers is that many of the assignments are actually quite simple. they really should just have a single tab, and it's just a matter of putting in the components that are necessary for that particular assignment. But if they do get more complicated, you want to organize how you want to present the assignment, you can define any number of tabs, and then you can define the UI components that you want to organize into those different tabs. And in all those cases, they can be controlled by the definition of this workflow template. And then the other piece of it is that we can define the actions that become visible. So today on an information page, you might have access to all the actions that might be possible for a particular object. What this would let us do is actually deliver the specific actions that might be needed for this particular assignment. So it kind of keeps you in the context of what you're actually trying to do. And then the other thing that's possible in all these cases is that you may have special actions that you might want to customize in, or there may be special UI components that you want to make available for the purpose of workflow assignment. They may not be necessarily available for the purpose of an information page. So there's potentially the idea of specialized UI components that are really helpful for doing the, basically working on your assignment. So as an example, we're thinking that we're going to have a fairly specialized review and comments, approval type component that lets you see how people who in the change process are voting and responding to a particular change, and try to make that maybe a little bit more useful. And that component can get pulled in the context of doing, let's say, some type of a change review. Another idea that we have is there may be a special form of a resulting object table, which is designed to actually help you complete, make all the bill of material changes or make all the CAD updates or whatever, whatever you're trying to do. But try to tune that component for the purpose of actually completing the change task, and try to design that to be as efficient as we can. Things like that are the kind of things that we're thinking about. So, and again, a lot of flexibility in terms of how you can you kind of lay these out and organize them and all that kind of thing. So again, this is just kind of a sample. This is just a very quick, it's probably a terrible mock-up, but just a thing that we put together to say, if we could actually show the details of the assignment, if we could show actually details of the business object, which in this case would be like a change notice or change request, and then to be able to put in things like, for example, the resulting object table. This would be what you might see in an assignment that gets delivered for completing a change task. So this would be a little bit more detail, a little bit more context to what you need to do to get this assignment done. So again, just an example is probably, hopefully we can make this look a little bit better than what you see here. But this is kind of the idea, is that we can very quickly stitch together the components that you want and how you want to lay them out and deliver them to the user, for the purpose of for these specific assignments. Okay, go on to the next. Or is that all you have?
That's all I had, Tom.
Okay. Yep.
But
okay.
I want to encourage, Tom, thanks very much, and I want to encourage, those of you who are using change management and would like to see some improvements, and you can maybe share some of the challenges that you've had today, share some of the, actual change forms that you have and how you'd like to change them. Tom, we'd love to have you work with Tom, and if you could reach out to Dwight and the TriStar team and say, you're interested in participating in this. Again, Tom would love to work with you and get better understand some of your challenges and hear some of the ideas that you have for improving this.
That'd be super if we could do that. In fact, this input would be quite timely if we could, kind of get that going, fairly soon. We're actually in the process of beginning to develop all this. So, and the other thing which has come up, again, it'd be interesting to get feedback, but the general concept of a review seems to be amongst one of the highest on the list of things that could be improved. And that's actually, so if you look at what we're going to try to deliver for M30, we're looking at approving the problem report, the change request, the change notice, all those review and approvals. We're going to try to figure out what components we can provide to make that as useful and efficient as we can. And then the other piece that's come up very high is the ability to actually complete the change task. So those are a couple things that are on the list of highly prioritized items that we want to try to provide at least some out-of-the-box workflow templates. We probably can't change the out-of-the-box workflow in a maintenance release, but we can at least deliver these pre-configured templates that you could actually incorporate into your own workflows. So we can probably get that much done in an M30 release.
Well, that's excellent. Thank you so much, Tom.
Okay.
Okay, so I wanted to finish up with talking about our next major release, and I'm calling this version 11 here. We're not sure whether we'll call it 10.3 or 11, but I'll call it version 11 at this point. There's a whole bunch of things that are under discussion. I really want to just focus on a couple of these. One is on one of the largest focuses for PTC in this release will be around supporting a product platform structure, and I'll talk more about what that means. And another new initiative is what we call a deliverable-centric approach to project management. Just a couple things that I think would be of particular interest that are bigger things, newer things. So let's start with this concept of a platform structure. We know that many of you today, really the best way that you can get the economies of scale is, to have these standardized products where you can produce them at high volume at high profit. But we also know that the challenges that you face from customers, from globalization, is for increasing diversity. So how do you achieve those economies of scale, yet deliver a diverse set of products? And so this is what platform structures is all about, solving this problem. And the basic idea is that you build a product platform that you can configure for a particular customer, for a particular region, and that you can even design those, let's say, region-specific capabilities in a particular region. Now, I know that some of you won't have these kinds of challenges in a global way, but think of it. Think of the challenges that you would have just in terms of providing personalization to your customers, in a narrower market. We certainly have customers like John Deere, for example, who have found that they tried to design tractors and other components in the U.S. for the Chinese market or for the Indian market, and discovered that they just didn't understand what was important to those particular markets, and so they would miss the mark, and they would not have successfully selling products in those regions. And so part of the idea too with this whole platform approach is that you can farm out, if you will, the variations to regional design teams that know the markets, or let's say know a particular type of customer very well, but yet you share a common platform of components that you can produce at large scale with a high level of profit. So this just summarized some of the key challenges that we see coming, that many of you have told us about. This increasing demand for personalization among your customers, compliance issues that are regional, and yet the cost challenges associated with supporting a lot of variety and the complexity of just managing that. And so if you look at what have companies done today, a lot of companies have used spreadsheets to try and manage options and different product variations. But again, as you have diverse teams that have to work on this, and where you really need to make sure that you get economies across this, it's really tough to get a holistic view with the traditional approaches. And so our goal is to build a solution that you can use to develop a platform for your products, and then where you can support a bunch of variations and configurations that are planned up front, and then validate those different platforms before they're actually built and delivered. So when we talk about validate, we're talking about making sure that the options and variations that you allow customers to choose can actually be built and actually work. You know, there's not conflicting interfaces that when you put one option on, or one accessory is added, another accessory that's supposed to be available with it, you know, can't be assembled because there's some kind of conflict. And the real benefits here is around providing some of the economies of scale with high volume, with common platform parts, but yet provide regional or customer-specific personalization in a way that's scalable. Okay, so the next thing that I wanted to talk about, the last thing, one of the challenges that we found with customers attempting to use project management for product development is that it's not a very agile or lean approach. And for those of you who have, you know, complex products where you've got a lot of change, especially when you're working in an engineer-to-order environment, you might have a lot of customer changes. You have your hands full just keeping that product structure up to date to reflect, you know, all of the changes. And if you have to also have a work breakdown structure that in many respects mimics what's in the product structure, well, if there's a change in the product structure, you got to change the work breakdown structure to reflect that. You know, something is added or something is removed, and now you need to add activities or remove activities that associated with actually developing those components. So it's not a very agile or lean. You know, the traditional project management approach is not very agile or lean. And so what we're planning to deliver in the next release is what we call a deliverables-focused approach to project management. And this is where you can, in the context of a structure, identify some of those key things like ownership, status, due date, for the work items that actually have to be produced and delivered. And this is something that, you know, we've had a lot of very positive feedback from customers that they think it's a much better fit for product development companies. Okay, so that's a summary of what's coming, what's here now in Windchill 10.2, what's coming in 10.2 M20 and M30, and then what's on the roadmap for the next major release. So I want to thank you and open it up for questions.
So Chris and Tom, thanks very much. So we've had a couple questions come in. So the first one is, can you delegate a workflow change request to a coworker, and can you set the out-of-office auto-delegate?
Tom, can you answer that one?
No, I can't answer that one.
Okay.
Oh, really?
So why don't I send that to you guys, and maybe if you don't mind researching the answer, and we can get that back to everyone on the call?
Okay.
Sure. Yeah.
Yep.
Geometric search capabilities within Windchill.
So it's something that we've talked about for a long time, and you know, I think there are some improving technologies around it, but you know, I'd be very interested to better understand what the real use cases are.
Okay.
And what we've, you know, our concern in the past is that it's just not, it's not useful enough. The available technologies around that are just not useful enough.
Okay. Okay. So the clarity, just kind of more use cases around that. This was more of a tactical one. Have you removed the tip box that hovers over the text box when typing change attributes?
Tom, can you respond to that one?
I missed what was the question?
It says, have you removed the tip box that hovers over the text box when trying to type or trying to change attributes?
I guess I don't know that we did anything specific. So that's, you know, what release is this?
I don't know. It doesn't say the release.
Okay.
I'm guessing it's maybe. I'm
Yeah,
guessing
I mean, it should all be based on standard what we call JCA behavior. So I mean, there should be no special treatment of the change attributes from any other attribute. So
okay. There's some follow-up questions here. Also, how the difference between 10.1 and 10.2. Is there a JDE bridge or clarity also? Do you know what that meant? I'm not sure if I understand that question. The question is there a JDE bridge or clarity also? Does that make sense?
So I assume they're talking about JD Edwards. Do we have do we have an ability to interface? So we have this generic capability to interface with ERP, the ERP connector, and that would be our typical answer for integrating with anything other than SAP or Oracle Manufacturing, which we support specific integrations for.
Okay. And then the question came in on PDM Essentials associated to PDM Link. We had Product Point before built off SharePoint, and now with PDM Essentials taking over, is there plans to continue to develop PDM Essentials, or will that develop along with the feature enhancements associated to PDM Link from a usability standpoint and a feature function standpoint?
Yeah, so that's a great question, and this underscores one of the reasons that we discontinued Product Point. The great thing is that the PDM Essentials customers will benefit from all of the Windchill platform improvements, as well as we will continue to make focused improvements in PDM Essentials itself. I was going to include a slide. One of the things that we're planning to add bundled with PDM Essentials is a bulk load capability for CAD files, so that you can quickly get up to speed, get your legacy data loaded, to have something built in out of the box to do that. So we will, again, the customers will get the benefits of improvements to the Windchill platform, plus specific improvements focused on smaller customer needs with PDM Essentials. And we support an upgrade from PDM Essentials to PDM Link. So for those customers who have matured to a point, let's say, where they say, we really need to support engineering change management, fine, you can upgrade to PDM Link. There's no database conversion. You don't have to retrain your users. You just take advantage of the new functionality. That's again one of the real benefits of having a single platform. So I talked earlier about product platforms. So we have the same concept and the same goal with our software. Windchill is the platform, and we can deliver all kinds of variations on that common platform.
Okay. One last question, another bridge question. XPAR Vision System, it's a statistical control inspection systems. Does Windchill interface or bridge to that system?
I can't answer that. Tom?
I can't answer that either.
Okay. So I'll forward some of these questions that came over. Maybe we can see if we can get some answers, and then I'll get it back out to the folks that attended this webinar, okay?
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Well, those are all the questions that were submitted. We're at 10 o'clock as we try to keep it on time here with the TriStar webinar. So Chris and Tom, thank you very much for the overview. I appreciate everyone that attended. And the follow-on is we've recorded this session, so we'll be sending this recording back out to everyone who attended. And as I mentioned, some of the follow-up questions we couldn't get answers to, we'll forward those to Chris and Tom, and they'll look to get answers, and then we can forward them back out to the team. So I thank you, everyone, for your time. And again, our next webinar is next month, March, and the topic will be aligning business requirements with technology for improved product development. So we'll send you all further information on that if that's of interest to you. Thanks again. Bye-bye now.